Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this post-mortem video of my recent Blitz game number 8, where I played black. I was playing the French defense against Tactifly. He opened with e4 and e6, that's the French defense, and he played f4, which you can see is a very unusual move. And one of the ideas here, which I thought about during the game, is just to play c5 and go into a Sicilian. This is like the Grand Prix attack against the Sicilian, but I decided to stay with d5 and play more like a French defense that I started out with. He went e5, and I went c5. These are the normal moves. And then the most common move here is knight f3. He went d4, which is also logical. It's the same idea, trying to support the center that white is building up there against black's somewhat slow development. Helps keep this light-squared bishop in prison. So that's it for the opening. We're out of the opening book at that point, and just look at the notation. And I looked at this earlier with Houdini, and I'll give you some comments what the computer had to say about certain positions, and I have a couple tactical quizzes. Actually, just one, but it's kind of a cool one. So I wasn't sure about this move. d4, because it did let me exchange, and his queen is a target. Now if I play the knight to c6 right away, it gets pinned, so I play this move a6 and then knight c6, and the computer thinks black is doing well here. Actually, black is more than equalized and is slightly better already, just because he's picked up a tempo against the queen and has no real deficiencies in his pawn structure. So we just continue with the normal developing moves. And here, g6. So g6 is an inaccurate move. The right way for black to continue to play for an advantage is to play the move f6. f6 challenges the center here. The idea is to exchange and maybe even try to win this pawn on e5 here. And then this bishop can come out of the way, and black can castle. I guess I was a little worried about the move g4, but there are places, yeah, until I move the bishop, the knight can just retreat on g4, and then this move g4 might become a weakness for white later. So I guess I'm overreacting. But I played g6 and he played g4, so I guess we were thinking along the same lines here. And my idea here was to play h5, but I have to do something about the knight first. And while I'm doing that, he plays some waiting moves on the other side of the board. And then he plays c4. So I go ahead with h5. And all this is roughly equal. It's this move here, c takes d5. The computer does not approve of this one, I guess because I get a nice pawn in the center here. And although this is an isolated pawn, it may become a weakness later in the game. At this point in the game, it's a strength. It controls squares here and here, and my knight is controlling the square in front of it. Well, he can drop a knight in there, so I can't say I'm controlling that square, but that square is subject to attack. So the computer likes this position for black, also because you know, I can evacuate this square g4, and this makes my pieces, gives my pieces some squares over here on the king side. His king is still not castled, and it's looking a little airy at this point. So here I play bishop f5, and he develops his knight, and I play bishop e4. So the next two moves, yeah, this one and the following move. The computer thinks black has an advantage at this point, and after two moves it thinks that white has an advantage. So my next two moves are both giving away some of what I've got. First of all, the computer has a nice idea here. Let's go ahead and play this out as a variation. It says the right idea here is just to go ahead and push the pawn. And this is a pawn sack, so supposing white takes up the pawn sack, black has this nice move here, bishop h4 check, and you see what the pawn sack did. There was a knight sitting on this square f3 protecting h4, and so by sacking a pawn here, it drew the knight away, and now I've got my piece is all active over here on the king side. His king is in check, and computer likes this position for black. Okay, I didn't see that during the game. I was more interested in just protecting this pawn. I played bishop to e4, and he responded to bishop e2, setting it up so he could castle and protecting the knight. And now my second move, I sort of knew this was not the greatest idea. I was just having trouble planning with the plan, coming up with a plan during the game. I played rook c8, and there's nothing especially wrong with that. It's just a little bit slow. The computer recommends playing queen d7 immediately, with the ideas of causing trouble on the king side. So just getting on this lovely diagonal here with the queen is a good idea. So rook c8, it's just kind of a wasted move in this position. He goes ahead and castles. And at this point, the computer thinks that white is better again. So whatever advantage I had earlier has disappeared, and it's more or less even. Actually, not white is not hugely better. So we roll along, and queens come off. I guess that was the other point of playing those other moves a bit sooner, is that it wouldn't have given him the chance to take the queens off. And I was thinking I might be okay here by grabbing this pawn, and I overlooked this check. Let's back up a second. Yeah, the check was just sitting there waiting to be played. Yeah, after the exchange of queens, it's opened up this diagonal, and that's weakened things. So I overlooked that during the game. That's a lack of alertness on my part. So the check is pretty good, and I play knight e6 to defend against the check. If I don't do that, I'm going to go down the exchange. If I move the king out of the way, he can grab this rook over here with the bishop. So it seemed like this was the only thing to play. But this move was actually a blunder, and now white can pretty much win the game here. And I'll give you guys a few seconds to think about it. This is your tactical quiz for this video. Okay, if you want more time to think about it, pause the video. And then I'm going to go ahead and tell you the answer now. The answer is there's a pawn hanging right here on f7, and the knight can just take it. That's a new variation. And after that, the knight hits the rook. So the rook comes over here, counterattacks the knight kind of logically. And then one of these rooks, I don't know if it matters which one, comes over here and checks the king. And not a great way to block this check. For example, this knight can't move because it's pinned. And this knight, if this knight comes up here to try and block the check, like that, the rook can just take it again because this knight is pinned. So I guess I could try, and the bishop can't block the check either. That's it, because this pawn is guarding the square right in front of the king. So none of these moves are possible, and the king has to move. And when the king moves, say comes here, the bishop can pick up the knight. And white is just a piece up. Not only did that pick up the knight, but it defended the rook and attacked. It picked up my knight, defended his knight, and attacked my rook. Yeah, so white is just winning in this position. So let's back up to that position. I played knight e6, and see if you can visualize that again. That's knight takes f7, rook has to move. Rook comes over and gives a check, and because of the pin on this knight, there's no way to block the check. The king has to move away somewhere, and then this knight here is hanging, because that knight takes f7 undefended, that knight. And when the bishop takes the knight, it defends the knight on f7 and also attacks the rook. So that's the tactic. Pretty neat. Fortunately for me, my opponent missed that, and he played the check first. It's kind of interesting. This happens a lot in my games too. This was one of the moves in the combination. It just had to be played at the right time. So the order of these moves is important. I get to escape and protect this pawn on f7, and so now things are momentarily about even. And after this move, knight takes e6. I grab a pawn on e5, and then he plays knight g7 check. And now I made the first blunder, but my opponent made the second blunder, and this move is a mistake, and it just loses. And it's a little bit tricky. I thought it was obvious at first. I just play king f7 and the knight is trapped. See, the knight has no squares to go to. So I thought all the squares are covered by my pieces. But I overlooked my opponent has this really nice move here, which is bishop to d4 with a check. And the check is coming from the rook, so it's a discovered check. Sorry about that. Meant to draw a line there. There's a discovered check against my king, and the bishop over here attacks at the same time my undefended knight. And if I took the knight, which was my plan, I move my king f7 here to attack the knight on g7. He takes my knight with check, so the material's even. I have to move my king out of the way, and then he can grab the rook, and he's going to be up the exchange after I take back his bishop. So this would be winning for white, except that I have one defense here. And if you want to treat this as a tactical quiz, you have to cover up the right-hand side of the video because I actually found the move and played it. But if you want to take a second to think about it, pause the video and hide the right side of the screen, you can try and see what you would play in this position as black. Okay, I'm going to show you now. The right move, which I was able to find during the game, is knight f3 check. And now things are in a bit of a pickle for black. He's got to either move his king or take the rook, take the knight with his rook. And if he moves the king, then I have rook takes here mate, or check if he goes this way. Yeah, I didn't actually look at that combination. The computer thinks the best move for white here is to take the knight. Let's see what else white could try here. So first of all, king to here. Let's turn on the engine. That'll be the easiest way to do it. I won't make any mistakes. Okay, he could try king to f2. He played rook to f3. So why not king g2? King g2 leads to a mate in 4. Because of rook takes h2 check. King g3 only move. Bishop d6 check. Okay, and then he's just throwing pieces at the way. King g4 only move. And there are different ways to mate, but the simplest is rook h4 check. So his king is in big trouble here after this move. Knight takes f3 check. The other way the king could try and run. Okay, so king in the corner. This is just a mate in 1. So the other way the king could try and run is going to f2. And what's that? Ah, that's the problem. The bishop is just hanging. The king moves. So I pick up a piece, and then the knight is hanging. So even if the king moves with check, I can pick up the knight. So all those king moves are really no good. And so what he tried was giving up the exchange with rook takes f3. And we can turn off the engine. But I'm just winning after this. So I take. He plays rook f1 to try and go after the pawn. I defend it with rook h3, which the computer also approved of that move. It's kind of a neat defense because you would normally worry about the knight being chased away from this square, but the king can't come forward here because that's guarded by the pawn. The bishop is a dark squared bishop, and it can't attack that square. And the knight is a couple moves away. The knight is the only piece that could really chase the rook away, and it requires a couple moves to get there. So all that is too slow. So this rook h3 move is a valid defense of the pawn. He plays rook e1. I went to bishop f6, which was the idea just to force a trade of pieces, get to a simpler position. And tries checking me and getting some counterplay, but I just march my king up, and the game is soon over after f2 check. There's really no response here. If he has to move his king, he can't take it, and then I'm picking up the rook here. So anyway, it was a great game. There was mutual blunders, and both sides had a chance to win. I just got lucky there that my opponent didn't punish my blunder, and I managed to find the right way to defend when he made a mistake. So to attack and then later defend. So good game, Tact to Fly, and hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave any comments in the section below. Bye.